Good morning, everyone. Sorry we're a few minutes late here, but we're going to call this regular board meeting of the Board of Trustees to order this morning at 9:11. We have our acknowledgement of land from Trustee Toon, please.
Oki, welcome to our division office located on the traditional land and territory of the Niitsitapi, Piikani, Kainai, and Siksika, the Blackfoot people, within the Treaty 7 region of southern Alberta.
Thank you so much. We will now stand for the singing of O Canada.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north, strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you. Thanks, Zoe. Thank you so much. And it's been such a pleasure to have different videos submitted from throughout the division of different students singing O Canada. It's so wonderful. That was Zoe Nelson from FP Walsh. So we will now move on to the consent agenda. The recommendation is that the February 27th, 2023 consent agenda be approved by the Board of Trustees as presented or amended. Can I get someone to make that motion? Trustee Hodges. Thank you. And go ahead, Trustee Hodges.
I would just like to pull the minutes out. There is an error in them, and so I just would like to go over the minutes there.
Okay, we will make that action item E5. Thank you, Trustee Hodges. Is there any other changes or items that need to be pulled at this time? Okay, seeing none, the recommendation is that the February 27th, 2023 consent agenda be approved by the Board of Trustees as amended. All in favor? Perfect, that is carried. Okay. Moving on to item C, emergent changes to the agenda. The recommendation is that the February 27th, 2023 regular board meeting agenda be approved by the Board of Trustees as presented or amended. Can I get someone to make that? Trustee Yegas. Okay, and are there any emergent changes to the agenda at this time? Seeing none. Okay, we can all in favor? Approve the agenda. Perfect. Okay. Item D, declaration of conflict of interest. The recommendation at this time is that the Board of Trustees declare if they have any conflict of interest relating to agenda items from the February 27th, 2023 board meeting, and if so, please declare them now. Is there any declarations at this time? Seeing none, we will move on. I also just wanted to mention that we are missing our superintendent today. We have both our associate superintendents here and our CAO, or Associate Superintendent of Business Services, but he is away at this time under the weather, so we'll excuse him today. What? It's not your real title? It's okay. Just doing the best I can. And we have Jeff Perry here with us. Okay, sorry. Anyways, we are missing Mr. Sequin at this time, so we wish him well. We'll move on to our action items. We're going to go to E1 at this time. Board Policy 10, in response to the January 23rd, 2023 Board Motion 22-130, Trustee Toon moved to postpone the question until the February board meeting. The Policy Committee Chair, Trustee Yegus, will review the proposed updates and changes to Policy 10. And the recommendation is that the Board of Trustees approve the changes made to Board Policy 10, board representatives as presented or amended. This is being moved by Trustee Yegus, and I'll let you speak to that.
Okay, thank you. There are just a few changes on Board Policy 10. One of them, if you have all read it, will be taking out the representatives to report to the board following each committee meeting. That is going to be removed. And the other changes has to do with the ASBA Zone 6. It isn't an executive anymore. And oops, I just lost it. So if you could look up on the screen there, you could see that the taking the executive off and changing some of the things on board of the powers and duties. And those were the changes that were made to Board Policy 10, period. Are there any questions?
Okay, thank you, Trustee Yegus. I'm seeing no questions. Did you feel like you wanted to close on that, or you good? Perfect. Okay, so the recommendation is that the Board of Trustees approve the changes made to Board Policy 10, board representatives as presented. All in favor? Perfect, that is carried. Thank you very much. We'll move on to E2, Board Policy 16. In response to the December 19th, 2022 Board Motion 22-115, Trustee Yegus moved that the Board of Trustees postpone the third reading of item E6 until February 27th, 2023 regular board meeting. Policy Committee Chair Trustee Yegus will review the postponed updates and changes to Policy 16, school closures, modernizations, reconfigurations as presented. The recommendation is that the Board of Trustees approve the third reading of the updated Board Policy 16, school closures, modernizations, reconfigurations as presented. This is being moved by Trustee Yegus, and I'll let you speak to that.
Okay, we left this third reading onto this one because some of the school school councils didn't have a chance, hadn't met prior to now. So unless there are some changes that have been brought up by school councils, I haven't got any changes myself. So I just basically Policy 16 as shown on the consent agenda. There's two of them. There's one, the old policy, and the one, the new policy. So unless there's any questions or proposed amendments, that's all I have to say about it.
Thank you, Trustee Yegus. Did anyone receive any further feedback or have any questions or comments around Board Policy 16 since our second reading? Okay. It was big changes and a major rewrite, so we appreciate the work that policy put into this and taking it out to all of our school councils and allowing time for that to happen. So with no further discussion, the recommendation is that the Board of Trustees approve the third reading of the updated Board Policy 16, school closures, modernization, reconfigurations as presented. All in favor? That is passed or carried. Okay, Board Policy, or E3, Board Policy 13. Policy Committee Chair Trustee Yegus will review the proposed updates and changes to Policy 13, Role of the Superintendent, and the recommendation is that the Board of Trustees approve the changes made to Board Policy 13, Role of the Superintendent, as presented or amended. This is being moved by Trustee Yegus, and you can speak to it.
Trustee Hodges is going to speak on this one.
Thank you. In going through the role of the superintendent, there wasn't very many changes that were made. They were all mostly made, I think, seven. Keep going. Oh, back up a little bit there, Nikki. What's that? Yeah, just a little bit of spelling. We corrected on that one, then we can go down to number 7 there. Includes reporting on growth and improvement towards a strategic plan. And so we struck out the 3-year plan, and it's the education plan. So that one. Timelines for the evaluation, when we were reviewing this, they were very cumbersome and not really worked well with the schedule. So we've taken the time to just kind of realign it a little bit better. So annual evaluations will be conducted in accordance with this document by November 30th of the subsequent school year. And then we moved on to the next section. The board must submit a notice of intent no later than December 31st. This must be done through a board motion, striking out the other ones. We felt that this gave more notice so the superintendent would know that he was going to be staying on with the board. Otherwise, leaving it the way it was, there wasn't much notice for the board to give the superintendent if he was going to be looking for a different position. So we felt that this cleared it up. And so before I move on to if there's any other changes, I just want to know if there's any questions around this change.
Thank you, Trustee Hodges. Is there any questions, comments, or concerns around this specific piece here in the timeline? Go ahead, Trustee Toon.
Thank you. Excuse me. Just with it already being in the Education Act at a minimal renewal period of less than 6 months, I think that it's kind of redundant to have the timeline laid out there because it's already entrenched in the requirement in the Education Act. We don't know what circumstances future boards might be in, and maybe based on that, the contract might expire at a different time. So saying that you have to do it in December 31st if contract possibly does it, initiates at a later time or terminates at another time, that might not, that could be 10 or 11 months before the end of a contract. So I'm not really comfortable putting in additional wording when it's already clearly defined in the Education Act what our requirements are on that one.
Thank you, Trustee Toon. Go ahead, Trustee Hodges. Your mic's off.
We did talk about that it already is in the Education Act. We just felt that the 6 months just wasn't clear enough for giving notice to a superintendent. We thought that just adding the little bit of extra wording in there for a new board would provide more clarity around it, and that it must be done through a board motion. I don't know if there's anyone else on the policy that had anything more to add to that. Trustee Gimber or Yegas?
Go ahead, Trustee Yegas.
Remember, this isn't part of the policy itself. This is the appendix to the policy. And we're putting this not only for the Education Act, but for this, our own specific area with our superintendent. And because of when we do it, which is usually in, May or June, we then, that's why giving them 6 months. And we did discuss the length of time in that, and we thought this would be sufficient for people not only to get somebody to do the evaluation, but for the superintendent to get ready for the evaluation. As I said, this can be changed if another board comes in and they decide to change the evaluation dates. This can be easily done by a board motion, or by a board motion.
Thank you, Trustee Yegas. I will just add, being at that meeting, I think the most important part of the change here was this must be done through board motion, just to ensure that if it was an entirely new board, they were aware that although the Education Act says 6 months, that they were aware they needed to ensure that they had a board meeting that they could bring this motion forward at before it was left too late, and then they missed that 6 month. So I don't know if you wanted to make an amendment so that just that part was in there, but that was a big piece of it, is just making sure that if there was a new board, that it was clear from, without going to the Education Act, that they could just look right here in our policies and see this has to be done 6 months before and through board motion, was part of that conversation. So, okay. Any further questions or comments on this section? Trustee Toon?
No, I appreciate the rationale behind that and the thinking. I would propose an amendment to strike out must submit a notice of intent no later than December 31st. I can see the rationale on the done through board motion, because that's how we make all decisions as a corporate board. So I think that's good to have that in there for future boards.
Thank you, Trustee Toon. Would the policy committee accept that as a friendly amendment? Go ahead, Trustee Hodges.
I understand where you're coming from, Trustee Toon. I just worry because of exactly what Trustee Yeager said about where we have our evaluations in June, that it doesn't give a lot of time. So unless, as a board, that we're willing to move evaluations a little bit, I do worry about that, that 6 months there, that it's kind of a really tight timeline in there. And so I think that that's why, as a policy committee, we really looked at giving it no later than December 31st because of where we hold our evaluations. And so that's...
Thank you, Trustee Hodges. So we'll consider this not a friendly amendment. We're only discussing the amendment at this time, which would be to strike that, strike the, yeah, there you go. Must submit the notice of intent no later than December 31st. Is there any further questions or comments on this amendment? Okay. Trustee Toon, did you want to close on it? Okay. So we're now voting whether you're in favor of, if you're in favor, then you are in favor of omitting the sentence that reads, must submit a notice of intent no later than December 31st. Okay, all those in favor? Okay, so that's 3 in favor, which means all those against. Go ahead. And so that is defeated. Okay. Okay, so we'll go back to the original. Thank you, Nikki. You do so good. She's doing all our tech stuff for us. Okay, so if there's no further questions or comments on this piece, we'll turn it back over to Trustee Hodges to continue to go forward.
I just want to make a comment on what we just talked about too. I mean, this is our appendix, and I do think that there's a bigger conversation that can happen with the board, maybe at a different time. So even though we had a great conversation around it, I feel like there's more conversation that could happen. So, okay, we'll move on then. I think the only other change was that we took out, just some wording in there. Again, just cleaning up some of the wording. Oh, I just lost my sheet. And then we talked about taking this Appendix C, the interview guide out, the CEO leadership practices. This is not something that we do anymore. This used to be done when we had a different evaluators coming in with us, and they sometimes would use this as an interview guide, but this is not a practice that we follow anymore. So the policy committee would like to recommend that this be taken out of it. Any questions around that?
Thank you, Trustee Hodges. Are there any questions around removing Appendix C? Or I guess we can open it up to all of it before we move forward with this. Are there any questions about the changes to Board Policy 13 in total, as a whole? What? Go ahead, trustee Gimber.
There's still some down below that we haven't
Oh, that
addressed
has
yet.
changes as well? Okay, just kidding. Okay. Thank you, trustee Gimber.
So we decided, and just for clarity purposes for defining words, that we would have a glossary at the end of our appendix here. There's a link for the SLQS and then school authorities and school jurisdictions. We just felt that this kind of, especially for new trustees coming in when reading this, exactly what the school authority meant, the school jurisdictions. And so if there was anything else throughout this document that we felt just could have a quick reference to it, we thought a glossary at the end of this would made more sense. So I think that was the end of it for changes. And like trustee Boytra said, our chair, if there's any other questions, we can answer them.
Thank you, trustee Hodges. Are there any other questions about the changes to board policy 13 at this time or comments? Go ahead, trustee Toon.
Thanks. With the one appendix C, I believe, being taken off, I know it's not currently being used in that entire form, but I'd hate for that to go away. I think it has some great questions and information there, and it's just a guide. It doesn't mean that it has to be used, but for future boards, if we all disappeared, I think that's a great starting point to learn, because I know we've been asked some of those questions in the past, not just people that directly report to the superintendent. So I don't think there's any harm in leaving it there, even if it's not 100% followed during the current evaluation process, because that can change at any time.
Thank you, trustee Toon. Further comments? Oh, sorry, trustee Toon, were you proposing an amendment or just, okay, not right now? Go ahead, trustee Hodges.
I don't think amendment is needed. I think we just brought it forward as a discussion item, just to see the thoughts of the board. I do feel then if we were maybe to leave this in here, that we could just reword it, just saying as guidelines and not necessarily practice. This could be done for a future, so I'm fine either way. Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Long, trustee Long.
I would prefer that and support that it stays in and amend it to be a directive.
Thank you, trustee Long. Okay, so that's considered a friendly amendment, although no one proposed an amendment. So in order to have that changed before we approve it, we need, go ahead, trustee Yegas.
I was just going to wonder what change was it that they were going to put on there?
The appendix C was to be removed and will now
No, the change was not to remove appendix C, but to change the wording of it. And how was the wording supposed to be done?
Sorry.
I just want clarification.
Okay, in board policy 13, it removes appendix C. There has not been anything to say that we're going to keep it yet. No one has made an amendment to say that they would like to keep it. So I don't have an answer to your question because I don't have anyone amending it so far. So is there someone who would like to make an amendment? Okay, trustee Hodges?
I will make an amendment. I'd like to amend that we keep Appendix C, the interview guide, and just reword it, saying that this is not necessarily in standing practice, but can be used in a future interview, as a future interview guide. So something along those lines, if anybody wants to wordsmith that with me, but
how about just switch it to say Appendix C, potential interview questions.
okay.
So do not remove it to Appendix C, rename it potential interview questions. And that is a motion being made by trustee Hodges. It's considered friendly. Go ahead, trustee Long.
Trustee Hodges, would the word considerations be clearer if we put that in there somewhere?
Yep.
Considerations of principal
For potential
superintendent?
interview questions, considerations for potential.
Considerations, yeah.
Yep.
that a friendly amendment?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. So is there any further, that's a friendly amendment and needs no vote. Is there any other questions, comments, concerns, or changes needed around board policy 13 at this time? Seeing none, trustee Hodges or Yeagus, did you want to close on it?
No, I think it speaks for itself. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. So the recommendation is that the Board of Trustees approve the changes made to Board Policy 13, role of the superintendent, as amended. This was moved by trustee Yeagus. All in favor? That's carried. Go ahead, trustee Yeagus.
I would like to thank the policy committee and the board for helping do the words for this policy. I'd also like to thank the policy committee for the long policy meeting we had so we could clear up the policies in our Google Drive. Trustee Gimber did a great job of making sense of everything in there in terms of the policy, and trustee Hodges also. So I'd like to really give them a big thank you because there was a lot of work done on these policies so far. So hopefully we are up to date.
Thank you, trustee Yeagus. We will now move on, and thank you to the policy committee and the board. We'll move on to E4. 2023-2022, or 2023-2024, and the 2024-2025 school calendars. Richard Feller, our Associate Superintendent of Human and Learning Services, will present the proposed 2023-2024 and the draft 2024-2025 school calendars to the Board of Trustees for approval. And the recommendation will be that the Board of Trustees approve the 2023-2024 and the draft 2024-2025 school year calendars as presented or amended. Can I get someone to make this motion? Trustee Hodges? And we'll turn it over to you, Mr. Feller.
Good morning. As you know, we've moved into a different direction in terms of our procedure of how we get feedback for calendars moving into the future. And this year, we had 327 respondents to our calendar feedback survey, which is great. We take this information and we use it to make any kind of changes we can to reflect what our stakeholders and our staff and our board need in order to fulfill the obligations of the Alberta Education's requirement. And so I just want to go through with you why we put these dates in place, and just to ensure that everybody is aware that we are meeting our obligations. And so the instructional time must meet or exceed Alberta Education's requirements as outlined in the Guide to Education. So we know that students in grades 1 to 9 have access to 950 hours of instruction, and students in grades 10 to 12 have access to 1,000 hours of instruction. That can change a little bit depending on more than that, depending on which areas these schools are in and multiple other things that the schools in those areas might need. The school calendar will have a minimum of one divisionally based professional development day, and that day is to be organized by the Professional Development Committee. And so we have that scheduled for November 7th on this calendar. However, I would like to talk to you a little bit about that as we move forward. The school year calendar must adhere to fixed diploma and achievement exam dates, and it does that for sure. The only thing that we don't have are the provincial achievement test dates for the 24-25 calendar. The school year calendar must have a fixed winter break, including non-instructional days from December 24th to January 2nd, and this calendar takes that into consideration. Sorry, both calendars take that into consideration. It must have a fixed spring break, and it does, from March 29th to April 7th. The school calendar must have a fixed starting and ending dates for both instructional and operational days in all schools. And we have a fixed starting date of August 28th and a fixed end date of June 27th for the 23-24. That's for staff. The school calendar must have a minimum of 8 site-based days for staff, planning, collaboration, and in-service activities. A minimum of 2 of these days will occur prior to the first instructional day. So the school calendar has 5 professional development days, including 2 site-based days prior to the first instructional day. The school calendar also has October 6th, April 26th, November 9th, April 26th, May 17th, for a total of 8. Again, we'll talk a little bit more about the November 9th PD day. The school calendar can include days which are board declared holidays or unassigned days where students and or staff are not required to attend. And on this particular calendar, we have November 10th is a non-operational day to address the Remembrance Day in lieu. However, that's going to be brought up again as we discuss this further. And then a school may appeal a special circumstance to the superintendent. So there are opportunities for schools to make minor modifications to their calendar by going through the superintendent. How we utilize the calendar feedback. So Labor Day was brought up and tagged for reference, and many of our staff and parents wanted to make sure that we were starting after the long weekend of September long weekend. And fortunately for the next 2 years, that is totally possible to do. And so we have put those in place. And the first day of school for students will be September 5th, the day after Labor Day, for the 23-24, and September 3rd for the 24-25. For the fall, there was tagged for reference that the fall break or week in November, we had some split in that, whether stakeholders and staff felt that it was a valuable week. However, the calendar reflects a fall break with November 6th being an ISC day, November 7th being a divisional day, November 8th being a divisional PD day, November 9th being a school-based PD day, and November 10th being a non-instructional day. What we were provided with in terms of information from multiple schools and feedback from their school councils is that there's a desire to change that week. So that would start on the 13th. So we would just reverse order that. And the 13th would be our non-operational day. The 14th would be an ISC. The 15th would be a divisional day. The 16th would be a divisional PD day. And the 17th is a school-based day. One of the issues that we've had and why we've decided to go in this direction with having this week is that it's extremely difficult for us to find subs during the year to do our professional development that the teachers need throughout the year. And so when we're pulling subs in to replace those teachers during the year, oftentimes we're not able to get everybody there. So these days allow us to have staff training around whether it's first aid, literacy committee, First Nation Métis Inuit committee meetings. All of these things can take place during this time. Thus, there's less interruptions during the year for students who might have a sub come in on days during the month. So that would be a recommendation going forward if you felt that it would benefit the stakeholders as well as the learners in our school division, that we would ask for your consideration around moving that week to the 13th. It provides more space between Halloween and Remembrance Day, and Remembrance Day celebrations, which would have to occur on the 3rd of November. So there would only be 3 days between Halloween and Remembrance Day, and that wouldn't provide the recognition that we need to put forward for our veterans. The calendar reflects the last day being December 22nd, with the students coming back on January 8th. So that was reflected in the calendar that we were starting a little bit late or ending later rather than earlier. In February, the calendar has a break from February 19th to February 23rd. And the spring, the calendar reflects that spring is being aligned with Easter from March 29th to the 7th. And then the year end, the calendar has a fixed end date aligned with diploma exams. Another note was that stakeholders felt that Mondays and Fridays were the best days to be able to take time for teachers to do their professional development. And we have 6 professional development days that have been scheduled for Friday after the first day of school for students. There's 1 inter-school collab day and divisional day that have been scheduled for November 8th and 9th, or with your consideration, the 14th and 15th. There were people who had responded to the 4-day week, and the board has not yet made a decision regarding a 4-day week and will engage with stakeholders prior to any kind of decision being made on that. Childcare was one of the pieces that were brought forward often, that it's difficult for working families to find childcare. And so we've tried to minimize that time while maximizing student learning within a calendar that provides necessary time for professional development. And finally, we had multiple thank yous from stakeholders that the board has done this engagement, and they have an opportunity to voice their opinions and concerns within a calendar. And 2 of our schools, the school councils, have made it known that they were grateful that the board has listened to their requests, and they can see that reflected in the calendar. So that is the information that I have for you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Mr. Fellow, for presenting the information and all the work that goes into it, and helping deepen the understanding about that process, since we've made changes recently to that. I'm going to open it up if we have any questions or comments around the calendar. And go ahead, Trustee Hodges.
Thank you. We received, Trustee Poitras and I received an email from our chair, Christy Burdett. She's the chair of WA Day, and they also support that change in November. She said in the email that the school council would like to propose the change. They would like to see the November fall break move from the 6th to the 10th to the 13th to the 17th. This change would allow for a better time Remembrance Day assembly in schools. In addition, it lines up with the University of Lethbridge calendar's days off. We believe this change would be beneficial as well for parents who get the 13th off in lieu of the weekend holiday. So I just wanted to share that information that we had received, because they didn't get it in when we were asking for the feedback at that time. And so I just wanted to make sure that that was noted.
Thank you. Trustee Toon.
Thank you. I appreciate Mr. Feller's great explanation, as always, on the calendar. I think we do an amazing job of seeking the input. In saying that, though, I would propose that a motion to postpone the decision on the calendar until we can survey stakeholders on the week of November. I would propose that just an A and a B calendar get proposed with the week as is, and the week as been proposed to change it to that week. In the school councils that I attended, there was no discussion of changing it because there was no proposal to change that. So I don't think that changing this on the limited feedback is a great way to move forward. There was no, in the draft calendar, no proposal of that week, and with the great job we do of seeking input from all stakeholders, and I know we have some school councils, especially during different times of year, have limited attendance. I think we need to do our due diligence on this and seek all stakeholders' opinion on the proposed changes to the calendar, because it has a huge impact on families. A lot of them have planned holidays years in advance and time off work, and I want to make sure that we're getting all the input we can from stakeholders and staff, making sure that, as was stated, that we're doing the best we can for our schools and our students.
Thank you, Trustee Toon. So the proposed amendment is to postpone the question until after our school council meetings for stakeholder engagement. Sorry, go ahead, Trustee Toon.
No, not school council meetings. That postponed the approval of the calendar till we can send out a survey to stakeholders on the proposed week. It didn't go out with the week, and I appreciate the feedback that was given. I'm not trying to discount or invalidate the feedback that was given, but I have a struggle with the inconsistencies on some school councils saying that there was no input on moving that week, and others suggesting moving it. And I think if some of them had the rationale or the thought of moving it going out, I think that would help facilitate a better understanding when we as a board make these changes. We came today with the draft calendar as presented, and it can always be amended, but not knowing that that feedback was coming submitted from school councils in Fort McLeod even, I think it's hard to make a decision based on that limited feedback.
Thank you, Trustee Toon. Can I recuse myself as chair, even though we're in the middle of a discussion? I'd like to recuse myself as chair at this time. Is there any trustees who would like to take over as chair, or if not, I'll turn it over to Mr. Perry to take over, and we're just at the motion to amend.
Yeah. Trustee Toon has an amendment on the floor with regards to what is written up on postpone the question until after we can send out a survey on moving the November 2023 week from November 6th to 10th to November 13th to 17th, 2023. Trustee Toon, is that your amendment?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So is there any comments? Okay, Trustee Poitras.
Thank you. I really appreciate Trustee Toon's motion. I appreciate where it's coming from. However, I feel very strongly that we have a process in place, and when we need to make decisions, we can't always just, not always, but we can't just put it out there and say, whichever is higher wins. We got feedback on the calendar and created the calendar around that, and then took the feedback out with a draft calendar saying, this looks good, and got feedback from multiple school councils as well as multiple administrators and staff saying that it would be better to move that week. And then once we looked at it as well, it allows for the Remembrance Day celebration to not be just 3 days after Halloween, which is there's often a week of Remembrance Day events that happen before the ceremony, and so it allows for that full week to give the respect to Remembrance Day, to prepare for that, and to have it as close to the actual day of remembrance, which is November 11th, Saturday in the 2023 year, and then have the week off. So I believe that I would be against this postponement, because I believe that we've heard from our stakeholders, and when we then reflected on it, it does prove to be a better move and allow for more access to subs, more respect to November 11th, and just a better calendar for our families. So that's why I personally would be against the postponement to survey all of the stakeholders. We are also on a time crunch because we need to approve the calendar so that then the principals can approve their calendars and set their own personal days.
Thank you, Trustee Poitras. Trustee Long.
So if we were to, this question is for Superintendent Cusack and Superintendent Feller. Would this have any negative impact on administration if we were to postpone this another month? In other words, are there decisions that you need to make coming up in the next 4 weeks that if we postpone this, it would impact you negatively?
Does administration want to respond?
Just logistically, when we're talking about balancing and connecting with our other partners in the South, Holy Spirit has been asking for a calendar for the last 2 months, and was hoping to have that out, because what we do depends on how they do what they do. So I think that would be a piece. Right now we're moving towards prioritizing our budget. There may be budgetary concerns around, or priorities that may be addressed through a calendar, and those changes may or may not be impacted. That I can't say, but those would just be considerations. Oh, and then the planning for our PD days and such the year before. Sorry, Chad.
Yeah, if I can address that, we're starting to plan a divisional day already. We have our committee in place, and we're working towards that. Booking speakers and things, we need definite dates to be able to do that. That may cause some delay in getting the people that we want to present, but again, we're always flexible, and the same goes for ISC Day, arranging those pieces and locations, longer wait, more difficult will be to sort that out. However, we have always been flexible, as you can see, with moving divisional day online, those things we've done in the past. So we're open to any of the pieces the board wishes.
Thank you, administration. So I have Trustee Hodges, then Trustee Toon, and then Trustee Yegas.
Thank you. The purpose of us having a draft calendar and the way we've set it up and sending and requiring feedback is to go to our school councils, where we then receive the feedback on our school calendars, where the board then makes the decision on how we move forward. I feel we've done our due diligence in presenting this. We've had our committee where we get lots of feedback at the committee. We then send it out to all our school councils, and our school councils then look at it and have the opportunity to provide feedback back to the board. We've looked at that, even though we had one come in late from Fort McLeod. I still feel we had a lot of recommendations on moving this week. I don't feel like this is something that's going to impact the calendar that much. I feel like if we have to do a survey, it's going to take over a month to get it out, get it back, look at it, and then us look at it again. I think we've already done our due diligence in receiving feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Hodges. Trustee Toon.
I don't know how, as a board, we can say that this doesn't have a big impact. This has a huge impact. This is a whole week out of a school year getting moved that was not proposed in our draft calendar. And I get there's rationale in doing this, but when we say we're making this decision based on feedback, how much feedback? Where's the numbers? How many school councils are against this? How many administrators are against this week? So you're talking 30 people, 20 people. I'm not comfortable making decisions like that when we have complete school councils that didn't say any feedback on this. This isn't moving a day. This isn't talking about shifting a PD day. This is a monumental shift on how what we've approved in the past. We've never made this type of change from a draft calendar based on limited feedback. So we don't have to wait a month to do this. We could have the survey open for a week and have a special meeting, and this could all be done in a week. So if the timelines are tight, it's because we make them tight with our process. And I think the purpose of having draft calendars 2 years in advance is to seek feedback, and we had draft calendars for 2 years. So to say we're gonna make a change based on that limited feedback, I really struggle with this, that to say that we're too late in the process to make sure we get this right. I want to do the best we can for all our students and staff, and I think we can do that by sending out a quick survey and making a decision based on what is best for everyone, not based on limited feedback.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Toon. Trustee Yegas.
I understand we had a survey done already for this, and we have gone to our school councils. We have got feedback. We all know that sometimes they don't give feedback, but we did get some feedback on this. So I think right now we have done, as said, our due diligence, and we have to move on with this because we could keep on going, and this is not what we should be doing. We have to make a decision, and so I am against the amendment.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Yegas. Trustee Poitras.
Thank you. As Trustee Toon said, our timelines are tight because of the processes we set. If our timelines are tight, then it's because of the choices we've made. However, this is not part of our process, and it never has been. We receive feedback, and you never know where the best idea is going to come from. This might not be something that was ever considered. I didn't think about moving that week. As a trustee, I've looked at it. As a mom, I've looked at it. And I'm like, okay, that's the week off. That's what they decided. But I didn't understand at the time or consider the fact that you must celebrate Remembrance Day by law through the Education Act. You must celebrate it the closest school day before. So it has to be celebrated on the 3rd. That's a long way. That's a big deal. it's way better, in my opinion, if we can show it the respect and have that full week leading up to Remembrance Day in the schools. All parents are going to have different perspectives on theirs. There's a lot of parents who we hear from who would like to always start school after the September long weekend. There's parents who would always like to start school before or be done June 15th. And it's important that we hear those perspectives. But this is an idea that came forward. Multiple people shared it. I don't know if it's 50% or 100%. We didn't get feedback from a lot, but it's an idea that was proposed. And this change is not being made, in my opinion, because a small group or a large group said, hey, we want it bumped, like just bump it. It's like, okay. No, it's because they offered reasons for why. Then our administrative team looked at it and said, these are valid reasons. This is better to move it for the reasons that have been shared with us by Mr. Feller today. And for those reasons, for the reasons that were shared today of respecting November 11th, it aligns with other divisions and the university, so more help with older students who may be at university being home to help with younger kids. For all of those reasons, I feel that this is a better change in the calendar, and I don't necessarily think that we need to survey all stakeholders to say, which do you vote? Whoever gets more votes wins. I think it's a better choice because of the reasons that were shared, not just because it was suggested and we need to follow every suggestion.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Poitras. Is there any trustees that would like a comment prior to Trustee Toon closing? Okay, Trustee Kimber.
I should comment just because I should comment. There's been great arguments, great discussion here, great dialogue. I can't remember which word I'm supposed to use, but so I kind of look at a couple different things. Being new to the process, I look on the Livingstone Range school division website and I don't see a draft calendar on there. So as a parent who has not been paying attention to board meetings and not going to school council meetings, I wouldn't even know that a draft calendar exists until it comes out. It is a draft. And the feedback that I heard was overwhelmingly that Remembrance Day is not going to get the recognition that it deserves. And that one hits me in the heart quite close. You know what? I don't have an answer one way or the other right now. I'm so torn, but it's not just a case of celebrating a holiday. To me, there's a lot more to Remembrance Day than that. If you want to get into the who has what days off, I mean, the rest of the province has that Monday, the 13th off. So you've got childcare issues there then too, when you've some families would be taking the 4 days off anyway after that because the parents already have that Monday off. So I think there's so many arguments one way or the other. If we were to just do a survey right now, you're just postponing the same kind of issues for another month because you're going to have the same kinds of people unless you make it mandatory that every parent answers the survey. You're still going to have the same people answering the survey as you did providing feedback. So from the feedback that I've received, I would be in favor of moving that week and not postponing the question.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Kimber. You have a comment? Okay.
Trustee Toon, would you consider it a friendly amendment to the amendment just to put a timeline on this so that it was postpone the question until the March meeting when a survey can be done before, just so that it's not so open-ended and our administration, if this passes, that our administration then would at least have, knowledge that we would be still taking this at a reasonable time.
Yeah, I'm open to any suggestions. That's why I didn't put a time frame on it. I thought we have other meetings and things. I think as soon as possible, this would be the best avenue to do this. So I'm open to any amendments that any trustee wants to propose.
So then I would just propose postpone the question until the March board meeting or earlier, in case we did call a special meeting or something, if this did pass, just to give our administration that knowledge that this calendar would still pass at the latest at our next board meeting.
Trustee Toon, just making sure you're in favor of that amendment. Okay, so it's a friendly amendment, so we're still talking about the amendment that is being proposed. Trustee Toon, would you like to close?
Yep. Thank you so much. Appreciate the dialogue. I think that it's great for everyone to share their thoughts on this and being able to hear from everyone on this. I get the sentiments around Remembrance Day. I'm in full support of that. I think our board does a great job of supporting those events in our schools and our communities and making sure we're doing all that we can. The problem where I struggle with this is I go back to the amount of feedback and the timeliness of this. We did not get a recommendation to move this from administration. We were presented with a draft calendar that could be amendment and given some rationale that could be used to amend that. We weren't given a recommendation from administration to amend this. Not to discount that amendment coming forward, but I struggle when we don't have correlated information. We don't have a consensus about this. We've heard that some trustees have heard from stakeholders. We have heard from others that they have heard nothing. And I don't want to make decisions on limited information. So we have an official response from one school council and no other official responses from any other school councils. And I'm saying that with a question mark because I don't know. We weren't presented with feedback. We weren't even presented with a list of feedback that was given. And so I struggle making decisions based on limited information. And I just want to do the best we can as a board. And I think sending out a survey isn't onerous. It makes sure we get as much feedback from as many people as possible. And I think the point that if you didn't attend a school council in this small window, you didn't get an opportunity to give feedback on this specific iteration of a draft calendar. So I'd ask the board to support this going forward. I think it's always best to make sure and double check we're getting the best information we can. So I'd ask for your support in doing this.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Toon.
Point of
that was the
information.
closing. Okay, point of information.
If this passes and say that the feedback came and we made the change, is there anything in our process, just because this has recently changed how we do the calendar, is it considered a new draft? Then does that new draft have to be presented again at school councils, or is that not? I'm sorry, unfamiliar exactly with what the policies and process around it are. So.
I'll turn to either administration or Mr. Toon with what your intent was.
Yeah, my intent is to make a decision. It's not to put out another draft calendar. It's just the specific question. Like moving a whole week of school affects staff greatly. It affects students greatly. It affects parents greatly. I get the feedback that was given about the challenges of where it is and falling with Remembrance Day. I think those are all valid concerns. But when we have complete schools that have raised zero concerns about it and have no feedback on it, and then we come back and say, hey guys, we changed this week. Well, the rationale was we got some limited feedback and made this decision. I want to just do the best we can, and I as a parent want to make sure that all the parents are getting to give input on this specific moving.
But thanks, Trustee Toon, but just for point of order, I'm just wondering, is there anything in our processes, administrative procedure, or our policies that would recommend that more action be taken after, if that change was made? Does anyone know that?
Excuse me, the admin procedure is that by January 10th, feedback is presented to the superintendent, and the superintendent is to then, or designate, is then to take that feedback from school councils. Because of the late nature of the calendar this year, or coming back late in January, we extended that to January 31st for school councils to get that information back to their principals, who would then bring it back to administration. Administration then puts that information into the calendar and shares it with the board, and then the board either, yeah.
Thank you for that clarification.
Was your point of order, Craig? Or Trustee Long? Okay. Okay, perfect. All right, so we are at the point where we will call the question. So the amendment, or the motion, sorry, that is on the floor is a postponement. So the postpone the question until the March board meeting or earlier, after we send out a survey on moving the November 2023 week from November 6th to 10th to November 13th to 17th, 2023. That is the postponement motion. If you're in favor of that, you're in favor of postponing. If you are not in favor of that, then we go back to the original motion. Everybody understand that? Okay, so I will call the question. All those in favor of the postponement motion? All those opposed? Vote is 3-3, so that is defeated. So we are back to the original motion of that the Board of Trustees approve the 2023-24 and draft 24-25 school year calendars as presented. Any comments? Or Trustee Poitras?
I would make an amendment to let the Board of Trustees approve the 2023-2024 draft calendar with the recommendation that administration move the November week off from November 6th to the 10th to November 13th to the 19th. Is that right? 13th to the 18th, 17th. There you go. Because it allows for more time for Remembrance Day celebrations and aligns with the stat holiday on November 13th.
Okay, so I'll just read that. Recommendation that, so the amendment is a recommendation that the administration move the November week off from November 6th to 10th to November 13th to 17th because it allows for more time for Remembrance Day celebration and aligns with the stat holiday on November 13th, 2023. Is that your amendment?
It is.
Okay. So we are now discussing the proposed amendment at this time, and so Trustee Long, do you have a comment?
Trustee Poitras going to make a friendly amendment that the wording be for recognition of Remembrance Day celebrations.
Absolutely. And just a point of order was when the calendar was presented, was administration recommending that this week be moved or just sharing information?
We were recommending that we move that based on the feedback that we received.
Okay, thank you. So then I would say move the week off because of recommendations from administration and the allowance of recommended by administration, and it allows for more time to recognize. Is that what you want? Recognize Remembrance Day? Okay, and allows for recognition of Remembrance Day. Yep. That's okay, just a minute. It's okay. you have too many fours there. Yeah, there you go. Sorry about the wordsmithing, Nikki. We appreciate you doing this. Allows for the recognition of Remembrance Day celebrations and aligns with stat holidays, which then allows parents to be home with their kids. So that's perfect. Okay, so.
Okay, so that's considered a friendly amendment. We will now speak to that amendment. Is there any comments, questions, or concerns in relation to the proposed amendment? Okay, seeing none, Trustee Poitras, do you want to close?
No, I just want to say I appreciate that this is a difficult decision, and I understand that we don't have all the information and all the feedback. However, our administration has that feedback, and based on the amount of feedback that they got, they felt comfortable making this recommendation to us. And so I feel like with that information and that recommendation and the discussions we've had today, it is best for us to move forward with that change.
Okay, thank you. So we are voting on the amendment. So the amendment states that the recommendation that administration move the November week off from November 6th to 10th to November 13th, 17th because of the recommendation by administration, and it allows for recognition of a Remembrance Day celebration and aligns with stat holiday on November 13, 2023, sorry. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. So we are to the amended motion. Okay, so we'll let Nikki do her magic. So that. So you can take out the recommendation. Just say that the Board of Trustees approve. Your calendars.
So it would say yearly calendars with the amendment that administration move. Is that correct?
Yeah, let's just go through it. That the Board of Trustees approve the 23-24 and draft 24-25 school year calendars with the amendment that administration move, and then we've read that already. So are you happy with that? That's what the amended motion looks like? Okay. So we're now speaking to the amended motion. There is no amendment on the floor at this point. This is the motion now that is being proposed. So comments, questions, concerns? Trustee Toon.
Thank you. Excuse me. Yeah, so we have a motion on the floor, and just have to, again, speak to the challenges of the process, even here and today in the meeting, the lack of clarity that is presented to the board members on what we are deciding. If it was in fact a recommendation from administration to move that, and that's what we were presented with, it wouldn't need an amendment to move the week. We would have been presented with a calendar that had that already in there. So we went and debated, and we were presented with a draft calendar. There was amendments made. We moved forward with those amendments. But to say that we, in the meeting, still were unclear on if it was a recommendation from administration or not, that to me speaks to the process and the challenges based on how we're making this decision with the limited information that came forward. And I struggle with it. I love our communities and our schools and what they do to support Remembrance Day, and I fully support the rationale of why this is going forward. But process-wise, this just isn't doing our due diligence, and I think that us as board members, in reflecting on how this moves forward in the future, we need to do better.
Thank you, Trustee Toon. Is there any other comments, questions, concerns? Okay, if not, who originally moved the motion? Trustee Hodges, would you like to close?
Sure. I do appreciate all the conversation that happened today. I do feel that this was just, like Trustee Toon said, maybe there's a little bit of a learning curve here. So I appreciate it, and I do appreciate all the feedback that we did receive. We were presented with it at a meeting of the whole, to say we didn't receive any, so we did. And so maybe moving into the future, that can be cleaned up a little bit more, but I appreciate everybody's conversation, and I'd like to just say that I think this is a great move, so thank you.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Hodges. So we are now going to call the question on the amended. Go ahead, Trustee Toon.
I would just ask for a recorded vote, please.
Yep. Okay, so the amended motion reads that the Board of Trustees approve the 2023-24 and draft 2024-25 school year calendars with the amendment that administration move the November week off from November 6th to 10th to November 13th to 17th because of the recommendation by administration, and it allows for recognition of Remembrance Day celebrations and aligns with the stat holiday on November 13th, 2023. All in favor? Those opposed? That is carried, and voting is recorded. I will now turn the chair back over to Trustee Poitras.
Thank you. We'll just give Nikki a minute there. Thank you all for that fulsome conversation. Just wrecking things. There we go. Perfect. Thank you, Nikki, for that. We'll now move on to E5. This was Trustee Hodges pulled the meeting minutes. So I will turn it over to her. If there's a, there you go, go ahead.
Thank you. Just looking at our meeting minutes, it was recorded as a special meeting where it wasn't a special meeting, it was a regular board meeting. I'll just wait for Nikki to bring those up. Yeah, that's my next one. Also, Jocelyn Stangwitz was not in attendance. And those were my two for the minutes.
Perfect. Thank you, Trustee Hodges. So the recommendation is that the Board of Trustees approve the the regular board meeting minutes. Yeah, sorry, Nikki, I'll give you a sec. The recommendation that the Board of Trustees accept the regular board meeting minutes.
Approve the amendment.
For, do you have the date on it? January 23rd, 2023 as amended. Okay, and that was moved by Trustee Hodges. Is there any further conversations, questions? Trustee Hodges, did you need to speak to it or close? No? Okay. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you for that attention to detail. We will now move on to discussion items or information. F1, projected enrollment numbers. Jeff Perry, Associate Superintendent, Business Services, will review the projected enrollment numbers, the process for gathering the projections, and any relevant trends for the 2023-2024 school year. I'll turn it to you, Mr. Perry.
Okay, thank you. Nikki, I actually sent you an email with the revised. This is the revised. Okay, there was very minor changes on this one compared to the one that was sent out to you. And it just finds the adjustments were down at the bottom where a formula wasn't working entirely correctly, and I'll go through that with you when I get there. Okay, so you've all had time to look at the preliminary enrollments. Overall, the FTE is anticipated to increase by 66 students. And of course, I just bring to your attention that we're making a projected enrollment number that will occur in September in January. So lots can change between now and then, but this is what Alberta Education will utilize to determine their weighted moving average and what our funding will be. And in the following year, of course, there's always a correction based on what our actual numbers are. So the best that our administrators could do at this time, and us looking at them and looking at past history and so forth, this is the projection that was provided. So I'll go through a little bit of the communities and speak to maybe some of the trends or why we might find increase or decrease. So when we look at Nanton overall is projected to be down 15 and a half students, the majority of that coming into AB Daily. When speaking with the administrator there, they were quite conservative on their enrollments for ECS. Their ECS have been down from projections a little bit over the last couple of years, and so they've been conservative in their ECS enrollment, as well as there's a larger grade 6 class going into grade 7 over at JT Foster, which and a smaller amount coming in to grade 1, which decreased the number. So that's the main reason for Nanton. They did talk about move-outs as well, and potentially one family choosing to send their kids to a school outside of the jurisdiction. Stavely is relatively stable, anticipating a 2-student increase. Stavely typically is very knowledgeable about their families that are within the community and who's moving and who's staying and so forth. So that's likely a very good estimate. Claresholm is anticipated to increase by 16. For the most part, the high school has experienced students moving in midway through the year. So when you're comparing where we were this year, that it doesn't take into account those students that have moved in, right? Because the numbers are frozen at a certain time. Okay, Granham, 2 families moving out has a significant impact on the number of students, as well as more students moving out of junior high and to the high school than the ECS coming in at the other end. So there's a 12.35 student decrease there. Fort Macleod is overall, it's about even, but there's a significant size class in grade 5 at WA Day moving to the high school. And so you can see that there's significant decrease in WA Day and a significant increase in FB Walsh. And for the most part, other than taking into consideration move-ins and move-outs, that's the predominant reason for that change. Pincher Creek is fairly stable, with neither school projecting to be significantly up or down. Livingstone, over the last couple of years, has increased, and they continue to believe they'll have a slight increase in the next year. Crow's Nest Pass, for the most part, they're individually as a school, they're not up significantly. Crow's Nest Pass Consolidated, or the Crow's Nest Consolidated School, significant number of students have moved in during the year, and that's where they anticipate an increase for next year. Overall, those small increases plus the high school is 24 and a half students being projected higher in the Crow's Nest Pass, which is a great trend to see. Outreach schools, we've got more students that are choosing to go from virtual to the outreach, or from the high schools to the outreach. The programming there is been very beneficial for students that need that type of environment. And so there's an anticipation of an additional 17 students in there. Colony schools are also anticipated to be up. We have more grade 1s coming in than grade 9s leaving. So that's the rationale from the administrator there. And international students we have conservatively estimated an additional 5 from the 35 that we projected last year. So overall, FTE in the schools, there's an increase of 62.75 in that area. Other types of alternative programming, we have home education, and of course this is FTE, so at the bottom we'll look at the head count, but FTE, as an FTE, we anticipate being slightly higher than we were in the current year, and virtual school slightly higher as well than where we were in the current year, for an increase of about 3.25 FTE. So overall FTE, that's 66 up from the prior year. When we look at headcount, we recognize that ECS are considered a 0.5 FTE. So we only anticipate going down by one ECS student from year to year. Regular grades 1 to 12, and this is where there's a change on there. So you might want to look at the document on here, and I'll send this updated document out to you. But I'm going to jump to the amended document too. Actually, I'll look up there. So regulars grades 1 to 12 head count were up 63.25. So you can tell that the majority of the increase overall is in the grades 1 to 12 regular count, not ECS. Sometimes ECS fluctuates significantly, and so that'll impact the head count, but overall the head count can be accounted for mostly the grade 1 to 12s in school. Virtual is slightly above at 3.2, and home education is 0.2 down. And the reason we get into the 0.2s and things of that nature is because there's some students that are actually taking home education portion of the time and they're in school another portion of the time. So it gets away from that 0.5 or the whole number, and you can get a 0.2. So they may be doing 0.8 home education, 0.2 school. And so that's how that works. But that's the majority of it. It's good news. Again, it's an early estimate, and so we'll see what transpires. But we're trending in the way we want to be. So I'll just leave it at that. And if there's any questions I can answer, then I will do so.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. It's exciting to see another year that's looking like we're going to have growth. So any questions or comments for Mr. Perry at this time? Seeing none. Well, thank you, Mr. Perry, for that. And move on to our F2 presenter. Mr. Kuzak, is she joining virtually? She's just going to come down. Okay. So we'll just take a 5-minute bio break while our schedule's a little bit off. So we'll just take a 5-minute bio break and allow for her to get a text and come on down. Thank you.
I don't know why.
Okay. So we're moving on to F2. Tara Tanner, our division principal. Wow, it's Monday. Will present to the Board of Trustees regarding the LRSD pursuits. We're so happy to have you here, Tara, and thank you for being flexible with our agenda time. So we'll turn it over to you.
All right, awesome. So I'll figure this mic out as I go along. So I'm going to give you an update on LRSD pursuits and basically themed around how we are providing for every student every day. So first topic underneath pursuits is our virtual school. And so obviously this is probably our biggest program. And just wanted to give you a little bit of update in terms of numbers and how things are kind of shaping up around our virtual school this year. So under my portfolio, I'm in charge of grades 7 to 12 students in our division. The younger grades are housed through Granham School and their virtual program there. So currently we're offering over 100 programs, different courses, I guess, credits, in those 6 grades. We have 5 full-time teaching staff and 1 divisional principal, myself, who has a part-time teaching load. And then in addition, we also run our 2 outreach schools. So we have Gateway and Crossroads schools, where we house in-person outreach students that are taking online content through our virtual school. We also have 2 teachers. One is housed at JT Foster and Willow Creek Comp, so half-time at each. And then another one services the West Corridor, half-time at CCHS and half-time at Livingstone School. So on the days that they're there, they have students coming to them, working with them on online content. That person is kind of their key contact for the virtual school, where they can set up meetings with other teachers across the division. They monitor their progress. We have tracking sheets, so they put up tracking sheets on the wall and they get to put their stickers as they get their assignments done. And they're just kind of there to be their champion for their virtual programming. We also have 3 full-time support staff, so 2 are housed here at Crossroads School, 1 child and youth care worker, 1 educational assistant, and then another educational assistant at Gateway School. They also provide both in-person and online support, so they have students that they meet with virtually that are taking full-time course loads through our virtual school to provide support as needed. And then we have Michelle Headley, who's our .5 admin assistant. So enrollment numbers this year, so this is as of February 8th. Of course, we've had more enrollments since that date in our part-time program. But we have a total of 73 taking full virtual school content, and then another 53 students at the 2 of our outreaches for a total of 126 full-time pursuit students. Part-time students are listed there as well, so there's about 380, a little bit more now, since this was February 8th. For giving us a total of 506 individual students that are taking courses through the virtual school. So that is a lot of kids that are really being touched and connected through our virtual programming. The majority of these students, so all of the part-time students, so all the 380, those are all LRSD students that are in our in-person learning environments at various high schools and have chosen, for various reasons, to take 1 or more courses through our virtual school. Go ahead.
Does that include summer school students?
No,
Okay.
that's just regular school year students. Enrollment by percentage. So again, this is as of February 8th, so things have changed a little bit, but it'll give you a good idea of kind of a breakdown of the different schools and which schools are accessing our programming. So you can see there anywhere from 5% of students through Matthew Halton all the way up to Willow Creek Comp at 22% of our enrollments are from that school. Course completion. So last year we did a calculation of our course completion rate, and it was approximately 69% at the end of June. While that looks low, just a reminder that ADLC, if you're familiar with the old Alberta Distance Learning Center model, they had about a 50% completion rate. So I was actually pretty excited that we were about 20% higher than the old ADLC model was. Also, just thinking in the context of our students that usually take courses through us, these are outreach kids. These are kids that probably weren't successful the first time around in their high school and are taking it for a credit recovery because they need the credits to graduate. A lot of our kids deal with lots of mental health issues, which is why they're taking courses online. And so we're really working with our kids that really need that love and care more than anyone else. And so I'm pretty excited that we are able to get almost 70% of them through these courses. We're continuing to kind of refine our tracking processes. Because we take intakes from so many different schools, it's quite the undertaking to keep everything straight and to see who's in and who's out. But we also kind of moved to a Friday model where our teachers are using that time to connect with parents and call and email them to encourage the students to remain on track for their course completion. So we're using that time to really try to encourage that course completion. And I've listed there the first 3 months of our school year. We make what's called no-show calls at the end of each month. So these are kids that have not engaged in their programs throughout that month, where we phone from the office just to provide encouragement, offer support, look for solutions as to how to support these students. And you can see a significant drop in our last year's no-show calls compared to this year. So we're really encouraged that we'll be able to bring that 69% even higher this year. Just looking at semester 1, because we just finished that. So average number of courses taught per teacher was 8 different courses, which is pretty significant. Average number of students per teacher was about 96 students per teacher. And in addition to that, our teachers support in-person learners. So on average, they were supporting about 35 in-person learners as well that they were responsible for. Semester 2, we were just kind of getting warmed up here, a month in. We have continued to see increased enrollments for semester 2 across the board. And so our average number of students per teacher will be higher. I would guess above the 100 mark for this second semester. And I think it's a largely, credit goes to the teachers for the excellent programming and work that they're doing. And they're now being seen as a really great option for students that are looking for alternative education opportunities in our division. So just want to highlight a few of the innovative programs that we're doing through our virtual school and our outreach schools. So this was one that I had the pleasure of taking part at the beginning of the month, and it is our Shakespeare Slam. So Kirby Dietz is our English teacher, and he teaches a large number of 30-1 English students that need to take Hamlet as part of their course curriculum. And Shakespeare can be not very exciting sometimes for some students, particularly if you got to take it online. So what he did is we offered a weekend, an immersive weekend where students could learn Hamlet at our Peaks campus. So we bussed the kids out. They went through the entire story of Hamlet. They watched the movie. We had a campfire, as you can see, and marshmallow roast, did some hiking kind of in between to give them body breaks and between the content. And so we had 14 of our students choose to participate in the immersive Hamlet experience. And so they were able to blow through a lot of content in a really meaningful and substantial way that weekend. This one is done at our Crossroads Outreach School. So they're participating in something called One Day Wonders. And so generally our outreach kiddos have a really tough time sometimes getting those option credits. They get really focused and immersed in their core classes, but forget that a good chunk of their credits need to come from those other learning opportunities. So the staff at Crossroads has developed this One Day Wonder philosophy where they take a day, and again, it's an immersive learning opportunity where students can pick one or get one CTS credit for a day of learning. So there's just a list of some of the ones they've done there. They did a foods one, they did a baking one, they've done a consumerism credit, outdoor survival. So the pictures you see up there, the campfire with their outdoor survival day. This month they're going to get a sewing credit, and then in March a rec leadership credit. And so excitement and culture building has really been building throughout the year as we have been piloting this new program with them. We also recently had Christy, our career practitioner, come down to Crossroads, and she brought their new VR headset. And so you can just see a few of the Crossroads students really engaging in some of those career guidance learning opportunities that new equipment is providing for them. And so she's promised to come back next month and run through a bunch more of our students there. And then this is another program we just started this year. So through some of our breakfast program grant, we were able to purchase some equipment for Gateway to begin a foods program there as well. So these are some of our students that are working through their Foods 1010s, their Introductory to Foods credit program. And we're using hot plates and being very creative with what we are doing with them. But they're super excited again to get those option credits that they wouldn't otherwise necessarily be able to get. And then last June, we had our first grad. So we had several students graduate from our school. Most of our students do choose to go back to their hometown school, which is great. But sometimes students, for whatever reasons, aren't necessarily comfortable participating in their hometown grad. And so we wanted to have this opportunity to have a graduation for students that maybe, for whatever reasons, didn't feel like they wanted to go back to their home school. And so this was our one graduate, Alitza, last year. And we had a banquet here, we decorated, we went all out for Alitza and her family. And so there's just a great photo. My glasses are not really on my eyes on that photo for whatever reason, but it was a really great and meaningful celebration that we had for her. And so then how do we support every student every day? So lots of these you already know. We work with our outreach kids. We do credit recovery for kids that maybe didn't pass a course. Kids that get off cycle in our schools, we know we only can offer things once a year or once every other year in some of our high schools. So we give that flexibility for students that move into our jurisdiction. We are able to provide that one-on-one or small group instruction through meets with our students. We adapt and change to meet the needs of our kids very, very fluidly and very easily through our online content. And we do a really great job of having that continual parent contact to kind of wrap around our students and support them as a team. Students have social emotional needs. We are able to provide for them a meaningful learning opportunity at home while still having communication with LRSD teachers. And then we also give that flexibility in terms of extra time to finish courses so students can finish as they're able to. And then this is just, as you know, our flexible programming is one strategy that will help, I believe, to increase our graduation rates for all LRSD students. All right, moving along to home education. So when I started with home education in 2020, we had 110 students. That was in the height of COVID. And as you can see throughout the years, many of those students have chosen to return back to in-person learning. So this year we have 44 students, soon to be 45, but that's close enough. These students that are kind of the dwindling in terms of our program is largely attributed to students that are no longer needing that for COVID purposes and have returned back to our LRSD schools. A couple moved out of our jurisdiction, but the remainder of the ones went back to their home schools. We do continue to offer phys ed and art programming in Claresholm. There's a fairly significant group of LRSD home educators there. We have phys ed here at Fort Macleod as well, and then we provide free access to other different online learning programs that families may choose to participate in if they would like. And so this is just some photos of our phys ed and art program at housed at Willow Creek Comp in Claresholm. And so how do we support every student every day through home education? Again, flexibility, that's the theme of pursuits. Community building activities through our phys ed and art. We allow students in our division to attend in-person and option courses. So some of our students in junior high in particular attend our in-person schools for option classes. We give the computer program access if they need, and then of course I'm available to help answer questions, help with program planning, provide inclusion strategies, resources, all that sort of stuff to parents as they need. Okay, the next one is diploma prep. So in January, we offered our LRSD diploma prep courses. The division, again, provided free instruction, transportation, and lunch to everyone who chose to participate. And so our enrollment numbers are listed there for the various courses. So anywhere from 27 for ELA up to 52 in our Social Studies 30 program. And all but one of these were offered by an LRSD teacher this time around, which is a new initiative for us this year. And so students, you can see they were up and at it. So on the whiteboard there, they were doing some social studies work. The students sitting at their desks, they were learning some biology content when I was there observing and watching them. We are waiting for our diploma results, should be coming in really shortly, so we can kind of measure and gauge kind of what the success rate of the program is. And so, as you know, we provide for every student every day. We provide that extra opportunity for that studying that they maybe necessarily wouldn't take advantage of in their home school. It also gives another teacher to be able to teach them. So all the teachers that were participants in our program didn't actually have that course offered this semester. So there was a new face, a new teacher for all of our students to learn from. They get that 2 full days of immersive studying in a really meaningful and engaging way. Okay, coming up is summer school. So next week, summer school registration's open. And so I've already been fielding lots of emails and phone calls from interested parents and students that are really excited about summer school being offered again this year. So Jason Porteous was recently hired to be our summer school principal, and he'll be taking over from Greg Freer, who did it the previous 2 years. Our offerings are very similar to last year. So ELA and social studies, grades 10 through 12, Science 10, 14, 24, grade 10 and 11 math, Phys Ed 10, HCS 3000, that is the work prep course. So if students want to take work experience throughout the summer, they can take that course to be able to receive work experience credits. And then Calm Career and Life Management is one of those other prerequisite courses that sometimes students struggle to get. So this gives them another opportunity to be able to gain those credits in the summer. Like I said, registration opens March 6th. Our dates run for the month of July. Diploma exams are in August, and they, again, are worth 20%, so a little bit of incentive for students. They're not up to 30 yet. And then our link for registration is there as well. So again, summer school, we provide that flexible learning. We give access to different teachers. We can have students catching up on missed credits. A lot of kids choose the 4th bullet point. They want to accelerate their learning or lighten their load during the school year, so they choose to take 1 or more courses through us. And then again, another strategy for us to improve our graduation rates. Okay, just a quick update on place-based and pre-employment. I know that you had a PEAKS presentation not that long ago, so I won't belabor this point. Things that we've done this year, kind of outside of that, we've had WMIS with Laura Stalker, so she offered that here for some students. They were also able to receive their HCS 3000 course by taking that through her. We finished up at the end of January our ski and snowboard instructor program with Powder Keg. It's our second year running for that. And many of those students are now actually employed at the ski hill. Avalanche safety training happened at the end of January as well. We had lots of students participate in that program again this year. Coming up in the spring, we have safe food handling certifications. So we had a lot of kids participate in that one last year. And many of them were actually hired for summer jobs, including my own son, ironically enough, who worked as a line cook last summer after taking safe food handling. Hunter Ed was super popular last year, and so we're continuing to offer those camps again via our place-based supervisors. And then first aid will be offered again in spring. And so Jason Clifton has been a really great support for a lot of these programs and working with me in getting some of them kind of up and running as well. So hard to see here, but this is our graduates from this year's Level 1 ski instructor program. So there's a photo of them. And then the next one is just our avalanche safety training students. So at Castle on the hill there, learning how to do different things. I'm not an avalanche person, so I won't speak to what they're learning about. And how do these support every student every day? So we're improving resumes and adding those certifications to our students so they stand out to employers. We're increasing options that they may not have at their home school, teaching them safety courses, which improve our wellness. And then one thing that we started doing last year and are continuing to do this year, we are offering our outreach students a lot of these courses at no cost. The school is paying for them. So they're getting accreditation in WMIS and safe food handling, hoping to make some of our outreach kiddos more employable as well as they go into different industries. All right, that is the end of my formal part of my presentation. So are there any questions?
Thank you, Tara. We really appreciate that. Do we have any questions? Go ahead, Trustee Hodges.
Actually, not really a question, more of a comment. It's on one of the slides, I think it said it all right there. Like, students are appreciative of the ability to have a choice on how they can better themselves in the education. Because as we know, and mental health is huge right now, not the bricks and mortars don't always work for kids to be in the building. And so I love to see how much this has grown and how kids are understanding that they can take control of themselves and where they want to go. So I just really appreciate the ability that we have as Livingston Range and Tara and the foresight that you have in developing these courses and getting these kids on board, and even seeing the 70% rate of completion is just amazing. And so I just think that we've done a really good job, and I appreciate everything that's happening right now. It's just so great to see. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Hodges. Other trustees have questions? Go ahead, Trustee Yegas, or comments?
This is once again not really a question, but I'm very impressed with your completion rate for the, I guess it's the outreach program. I do know that's very difficult to get kids to do this. And also that there seems to be, you say there's 8 courses and 96 students. So that is a huge amount of courses and students for teachers. So that is very impressive. So yeah, as I said, accolades to you and all your teachers, because I do know that this is very difficult to do.
Thank you very much, Trustee Yegas. Any other trustees? I just had a question. Are your outreaches both full? Like, what,
Yeah,
physical
at this
outreach
point in time,
programs?
we are full. Because our teachers have to teach online and in person, it does, and our in-person learners do require a lot of love and care and one-on-one support. So yeah, at this point, both our outreaches are full and close to enrollments.
And just with them being full, is there like a wait list or a list of kids so that you are kind of aware of the desire to attend those programs? So when the need comes that we may need to have more teachers or move to just having the teachers there and then having the online be separate, is there kind of a list of kids waiting?
So there is several parents that have inquired, and so I've asked them to apply in April and get on that waiting list. So I just phoned one back this morning, actually. So they've been asked to just wait till April to enroll, and I do know that the sending schools do have students in mind as well, and I work with those principals really closely, and as spaces come available, I do let them know as well, and we move students accordingly.
Perfect, thank you so much. If there's no other questions or comments from the trustees, I'm seeing none. I want to thank you for coming today and again for being flexible with our agenda, but we love hearing about the programs and you highlighting how that is serving every student every day and the diverse needs that we have in our division. So thank you very much. We appreciate that.
All right, thank you.
Okay, perfect. What a wonderful presentation. With that, we're going to move to G1, in camera. So can I get a motion to move in camera at 11:04 by Trustee Long? Okay, and so we will just move next door to discuss our in-camera stuff.